So, how were you chosen to, or how was she chosen to do this?
We've, as I've told other people, we've had kind of a history of a relationship. We've known each other for many years, and I'll just tell you the truth, whether she's here or not.
She arrested you once, didn't
Thank
she?
you, thank you. There's the story.
That's
Thank
true.
you. Now we got that on video. But I've always admired her, always respected her. Long before she was chief of police, we've always had a very good relationship. Anytime I've ever needed anything from the police department, she's always come through. So, as I'm going through my list of people that I want to be part of what we do here at Bluffton High School, she was just a natural selection for me, and someone I wanted to come in and share the day with.
So, what's been your favorite part so far? I mean, I know it just started, but
I relate some of what I do in my job to what Mr. Baker does, and it's like react and put out a lot of fires. I sometimes joke that I should have fire chief on my office instead of police chief, because it is solving problems as they come up constantly. But what I have seen so far this morning, and what I'm really impressed with, is even though it's constant problem solving, it's done in such a positive atmosphere and such a positive force behind it, you know, instead of just complaining about, oh, this happened and this thing, this horrible thing and that horrible thing. They're making the best of, not just Mr. Baker, but the rest of his staff is making the best of things and figuring out how to fix it in the most positive way.
And what do you feel is like the hardest part about this job?
Keeping up the pace,
Yeah.
and having to be so well-rounded and having to have the knowledge of, I mean, I see him interact with students that he knows them by name, and he knows personal history, and at the same time he's evaluating classrooms from such extremes, you know, art to journalism to math to whatever. I just asked him, do you have to know that really well? Do you have to know each one of those fields, or are you more evaluating the whole process?
So, how has the role of principal changed since you were in high school?
You never saw the principal. The principal didn't interact in my school. I see all, and I think whenever you have a person who is leading, then people just by osmosis begin to act the same way and do the same thing. So he doesn't have to come out and say, here's what I want you to do. His example is causing people to maybe change the way they interact with the students.
So, what kind of planning goes into doing this, like each year?
The nice part is, and this is what I told her from the very beginning, is I don't create anything for the day. I just don't. So far, like this morning, we started at 7 o'clock. She was here well before 7 o'clock. But we started with a teacher meeting that we do every Wednesday from 7 to 7:30, and we would have done that whether she were here or not. And it was on safety and discipline, which was a good training for our teachers. We would have done that whether she were here or not. And then we went right to our, every week, once a week, my office staff, which is Mrs. Morrison, Mr. Meyer, Mrs. Lease, Mr. Thompson, and me. We meet once a week for an hour to discuss you and what we can do better and what services and programs we need to have in place, making sure everybody gets what they need. We would do that today, whether she were here or not, and then went to my homeroom, which I always do, and then since then we've been in classes, which you know I do. So the nice part is, long story short, I don't have to prepare much at all. She's already helped in a few situations.
Has she?
Yeah.
Can you give me an example of that?
Well, I've already talked to a few students that I already had down on my calendar to see me, and she's, is that filming, Chet? Okay,
Yes.
so I won't make any jokes that I can't back up on. She gave some very wise advice, very good, and she knows some of the same students I'm trying to work with and help, and she knows the same students and families, so she was able to provide that kind of, and it was like both of us were talking to a student trying to help, so I've already appreciated her take on things.
That's about all the questions I had. Is there anything that you wanted to add?
Sometimes in my career in law enforcement, we get a little jaded because we deal with a certain percent of the society over and over and over again, and it's usually kind of negative. So this is so refreshing for me to see, and I've experienced this before because I teach their high school lesson down at Southern Wells, and I've probably subbed a time or two for Mr. Holland. So it's always refreshing for me to see cool students, neat students. They have great ideas. I'm always impressed. I think that sometimes there's a an impression between law enforcement and young people that we're just out to bust you and you're just out to make our life miserable. So it's really refreshing when I come in and see, hey, there's really a lot of neat kids here. They've got great ideas and we need to listen to you more. So I appreciate that.